symbol of the Presbyterian Church is the biblical burning bush, and above the door were the Roman numerals MDCXC 1690. As we knock on the church, was built at the Battle of the Boyne, when King William of Orange eventually defeated the Catholic King James II. The church itself was built in 1601 and is undergoing major restoration work at the moment. So many of those Presbyterians went, of course, to the United States of America. And this was known, this whole period was known as the Plantations of Ulster. Now, these were Scottish Presbyterians who were planted here by James I. He called them the planters, and then they subsequently upped sticks and went to the United States and Canada and Australia. Now, today they'll often refer to their ancestry, of course, as the Scots-Irish or the Ulster Scots. 13 presidents of the United States of America have what we call a Scots-Irish connection. People like Andrew Jackson, McKinley, Madison, Buchanan, the 5th president, James Monroe, all have their connections to within a 40-mile radius of this city. This gate is called Butcher Gate, after the slaughterhouse for animals, and this street is called Butcher Street. And you can see down here to the centre of the old city, the war memorial to commemorate our dead, Catholic and Protestant, who died fighting side by side together during the First and Second World War. As I said, we united together during the Great Wars, and as I said, if London had fallen during the Second World War, this city was to become the main administration and communications headquarters for the Allies. You see the lovely hills in the distance, and of course you came from the Republic of Ireland, from Donegal, and that's Donegal over there, that's the border. We're only a mile from the border. When you crossed with Mick, you realise that there's no physical border anymore. You cross freely, and that tells you really that I could live over there with my wife and children and work here in Northern Ireland without restriction. I don't know whether you also know, but that 9 out of 10 of our gas stations have closed down here, because if we take our cars across the border, because of exchange rates and taxes, it's 20% cheaper. And I'm only telling you this because there's no loyalty to Northern Ireland when it comes to filling your cars up with fuel. Catholics, Protestants, and I'm ashamed to say Buddhists have all succumbed to the cheaper gas prices across in Donegal. As we leave this juncture, a very famous lady landed here in 1932, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. Her name was Amelia Earhart. She actually came from a place called Atchison in Kansas, and she left from Harbour Grace in Newfoundland. Her intended destination was Paris, but luckily for us, she ran out of fuel and landed here in this city. She undoubtedly heard about the cheap gas across the border, ladies and gentlemen. So this is just to highlight, I suppose, as well, that Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland are much more cooperative than what they used to be. I think it's actually very interesting that the last time there was a border erected in Northern Ireland, an actual physical border by an army, was not actually erected by the British Army but the Irish Army in 2002. And why would the Irish Army erect a border in 2002? Can anybody remember what happened back in 2002? There's something called foot and mouth disease.
Oh, yeah.
And as a result of foot and mouth disease, which was wiping out herds of cattle across Britain, there was a ban on British beef. Now, agriculture is the #1 industry in the Republic of Ireland, as it is in Northern Ireland. Now, there were no cattle on the island of Ireland that had any foot and mouth disease. But remember that Northern Ireland being part of Britain, there was a ban on British beef. So the cows in Northern Ireland were seen as Protestant, British cows, and the cows across over in those hills were Catholic Irish cows. This is the truth. I mean, there wasn't anything wrong with either, but one was guilty by association. And the Republic of Ireland got paranoid, and they cordoned off all of the borders where there was any crossing to make sure that no cattle was being transported. The British agricultural industry was on its knees because, as I said, there was a ban on British beef. And I always remember there was this debate in our parliament here in Northern Ireland to figure out as to whether the cows here were British or Irish cows. But of course, because we were part of the United Kingdom, the cows were British cows, and this ban on British beef was not lifted until I think about almost a year later, but it nearly brought the beef industry to its knees here in Northern Ireland. This gate, by the way, is called Castle Gate. It's a new gate. By new I mean 1803, but it's new in relation to the rest of the city walls. It's named named after the O'Doherty Castle. The O'Dohertys were one of the great rulers here at one time. This street is called Magazine Street. You also have Magazine Gate after the ammunitions magazine, and I think we ran out of ideas because the last gate is called Newgate. Finally, just to say, I was in Belfast recently, and I was standing at the steps of the City Hall, and I was sitting there with my wife, and we were having this takeaway coffees, and I saw this young guy walking across the common, and I only noticed him. It was a freezing cold day, and he was wearing a t-shirt, and on the front of the t-shirt was a beautiful picture of the Titanic. And I was just admiring it, and but he walked by us, and my wife and I started laughing because on the back of the t-shirt was written, "It was fine when it left here." I always think of Amelia Earhart now, because she was fine when she left here. He had nothing to do with her disappearance.
Oh, that's good.
So lacking vitamin D here in Northern Ireland. One of the things I really want you to, I saw some of you standing at the Guildhall Square there. Did you notice when you were standing there that the cannon that you see on these walls are pointing directly at that building over there? Yeah. And some of us might say that's very appropriate, because inside that building is where our local politicians sit. That's not a church, but our City Hall. It looks like a church from the outside, built in what we would describe as a neo-Gothic style back in 1890, destroyed by fire in 1908, destroyed again by 2 bombs in 1972. Remember I told you about the statue of Queen Victoria and the guy who subsequently became an elected member of Parliament in there. This year's mayor is a Catholic mayor, next year's mayor is a Protestant mayor, and the power is actually rotated all the time, which is a really good system to have, considering that, this city's population is overwhelmingly Catholic. In fact, within our City Council chamber, 23 of the 30 members are Catholic members and 7 are Protestant. This year's mayor, by the way, is the youngest mayor ever in Northern Ireland. He's 27 years of age. That's young by any standard. His name is Colm Eastwood. On a personal level, I have to say I'm delighted he's our mayor. The reason why I say that is because when I listen to the media interview him, they never really seem to ask him about his past, because he doesn't have a past. He wasn't born when Bloody Sunday happened in 1972.
Right.
He wasn't born when the hunger strikes happened in 1981.
Yeah.
So unlike so many of other politicians like Gerry Adams and the Reverend Dean Paisley, where they're always asking him what they were up to in the 1970s and 80s, they have nothing on Colm. And Colm has such a different outlook, I suppose, to the last generation of politicians who are so overburdened by what went on here in the 1970s and 80s. Now we're going to go down the steps here. We're going to go down through Magazine Gate, which is one of the newer gates. We're going to make our way towards the City Hall. Follow me, ladies and gentlemen.
So they start plum jobs. So
Did you also recognise, of course, that we have now gone from being within the walls to outside the walls? We're now on terra firma here, and you notice again that the cannon are pointing directly at this building here, the City Hall. So essentially, 2 different periods in history. Bye girls! Say bye to the girls! You also notice that the cannon are pointing directly at this building. Now the reason being, of course, is the river which is behind here used to flow right up to the walls at one time. So this is all located on reclaimed land. So hence the name Ship Quay Gate, Ferry Quay Gate on the Bogside. This is where so many of the emigrant boats would have left from to head to America, Canada, Australia and New Zealand. Remember that Derry was a major port of emigration to the New World. Okay? Not just Cove and County Cove, so many thousands of emigrants would have left from here. Ladies and gentlemen, my first job when I left university here for the first time was teaching a language called Irish. And I used to teach in a place called Gweedore, which is in the west of Donegal. And on the first morning I was to be at this school, I got lost. And I went into a shop to look for directions, and I asked the lady in English, did she know where Gweedore Summer School was? She said she did not, but she would ask her friend across the way, and the two ladies began a conversation in Irish, not just about the school, but also about me. It's very interesting to listen to somebody talk about you in another language when they think you cannot understand what they're saying. And after they had finished, they gave me directions in English, and as I was about to leave, I wasn't going to say anything, but a little devil in me came out, and I looked at the two ladies, and I very simply said to them, "Kalini, Gormila Mahagiv, ladies, thank you very, very much." The look of shock and horror on their faces, it was a joy to behold. An uncomfortable silence existed for a second until eventually one of the ladies said, in a rather hurried tone of voice, he said, "I'm very, very sorry, sir, but I need to go to the toilet." Away she went. I really didn't mean to embarrass her all that much, but I always try and encourage people when they come to Northern Ireland to try and not judge a book by the cover. I suppose we like you to weigh both sides up, but most importantly, we hope you enjoy yourself. I can't tell you again what a pleasure it is for us to have you here. I'm sure yourselves never ever thought you'd ever step foot in Northern Ireland. You know, given the violence that existed here over the last number of years, I just think it's amazing. And I'd just like to take this final opportunity to thank each and every one of you for including Northern Ireland a part of your tour. And on behalf of myself, Ronan, Mark, Ivan, Thomas, Benoit, Lee McNamarra, a very simple Irish farewell to you all. Ganari and Bocherlo, may the road rise with you all, and indeed to meet you all. And I wish you all a wonderful time here in Ireland. I know you're going to make it.